Welcome to this sneak preview of our Future of Private Investing event, which will be taking place on the 15th of June in London. I'm Dan Jones, the Deputy Editor of Investors Chronicle, and with me is Rupal Patel, the CEO of Blue Infinity Property Group. And as that job title implies, we are going to be talking about a topic that attracts a lot of attention in the UK. When does it not? Over the past 12 months in particular, and that's property, of course. This will be a session at the event. But ahead of that, this is a big topic, as I say. Tougher times this year, perhaps, given the rise in interest rates we've seen. What are your thoughts, first of all, on the best and worst case scenarios for this year, if you can do that?
Yeah, so let's see. Best case scenario, we get inflation under control, banks rate that stabilizes the base rate, and we just see more of the sort of the pent-up demand starting to go back into the market as far as acquisitions and even just residential purchases. I think, and of course, the worst case scenario, we don't get inflation under control. The bank gets towards the higher end of, the sort of 5.5–6% rate that has been sort of talked about, increasing it to everybody, or investors, including just individuals, sort of retrench because of the uncertainty. And then again, we sort of go more into a lower transaction market. So I think I'm a cynical optimist. So I think perhaps we will be towards the more optimistic end of that. It does seem that things are calming down a bit, and a lot of the anxiety around, are we entering a recession, and what's going on in the macroeconomic environment has proven to be a little bit less doomsday scenarios than have been predicted.
That mention of the low transaction environment is interesting because this is what we saw a little bit in 2008 and in the UK as well. You've got a lot of homeowners who don't have a mortgage, who've paid off their mortgage. So we could be perhaps in a situation where if prices start falling, you simply get a seller's strike, as it were, and not many properties are on the market at all might be the ultimate outcome without much price discovery. Yeah,
and at the same time, though, in that scenario, I think those who need to sell, of course, will always need to sell. And from an investor's perspective, there's always opportunity in times of uncertainty, of course, and recession. And there has been some talk, or are we entering a buyer's market? Are we already there, depending on the type of property we're talking about? And look, my view is anytime you invest in anything, it is a generally safer bet to invest with a slightly longer time scale in mind. And so over the long term, the fundamentals for the UK property market across commercial and residential are really, really strong. It's just we're now in one of those sort of entering into perhaps maybe a bit of a down cycle. But I think if you are investing for the long term, there's very little you can do to go wrong, of course, within certain, with lots of caveats to that. But yeah, fundamentally, the market is strong for the long term.
And on the commercial property front, do you see a swifter recovery there? Are there pockets of resilience? Is it hard to say at this stage relative to residential?
I think it is one of those annoying how long is a piece of string questions or answers. And we're seeing different ends of the market behaving differently. So, of course, retail was absolutely battered during COVID, and there's very further left for it to fall. So perhaps those prices have bottomed out. And in prime central locations, it's either going to be desirable or it's not, and we've probably already seen the uptake that we're perhaps going to see in the retail side of things. At the higher, sort of more premium end of the industrial landscape, prices are just skyrocketing because of all of, the changes in, things like logistics and online shopping, et cetera. And so, again, perhaps we've reached the ceiling there. What I'm really interested in is seeing what happens with offices, because, of course, again, with most companies offering some form of work from home, there's opportunity there for some really innovative things to happen. And, I talk to a lot of investors, but also early stage businesses. And there are some really interesting ideas out there. So things like, co-working has been talked a lot about, but co-working for lab spaces, for example, in and around universities, where if a intrepid investor wants to take a big, retail park and convert it into a co-working space for labs, you retrofit it, those labs come in, those researchers come in, they're not going anywhere for a while. It helps, it sort of helps everybody and do something a little bit different to what we've seen in the past.
Rupal, thank you very much. It's going to be a great discussion on the 15th.
Great.
We do hope you can join us then.